The role of artificial intelligence and the need to better manage and integrate real-time data continue to grow in government, but so do the challenges. Among those challenges is the need to cost effectively and efficiently access, manage, and process all that data securely and drive innovation. After a decade of moving data operations to public and government clouds, agencies are beginning to rethink their approaches to managing their data in the face of escalating costs, latency, and complexity. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk about this evolving landscape is Bill Hepworth, Program Executive Officer, PEO Enterprise at the U.S. Army. Bill, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I'd like to start by asking what types of IT use cases, including AI, are getting your agency's most significant investment support? And how do you see those investments bringing greater innovation to your agency's mission?
Well, it's interesting. Over the past year, we've had an explosion of potential use cases that we've been pursuing. So we went from almost nothing last year to this year, we've got a flood coming out. So, for example, with our cyber, investments that we're putting out there today, we're going after two in the acquisition realm. So one of them is actually a cyber request that's in flight. It's actually doing quite well. As a matter of fact, I got to see a demo, and you can see now that our acquisition staff are capable of generating entire acquisition documentation sets. And not only just create them on the first pass and then edit them, they're actually able to make modifications by text prompt. And we're talking about a pretty robust set. This isn't just templating. So one of the things you can do is actually have it create market analysis for you. So the system will actually go out, execute market analysis, build the documentation set around it. Something that used to take weeks now is done in a matter of 15 minutes max. What that does is really kind of reduces the cognitive load on the acquisition staff so they can pay attention to the really nitty-gritty details by having to build these huge documents, which I think our industry partners have seen. So that's one. And on the back end of acquisition now, we have another cyber request that's working on source selection. And so what that does is it does the opposite. So it's actually pulling documents from industry as they're bidding on the proposals and giving the acquisition staff an initial first blush on really the value and merits of the different packages coming in. So that's very exciting to us because that brings our pulse down significantly. In fact, to give you an idea of how profound it is, we went from having 2 years, acquisition lead times when I first got here, down to the point where we think we will be reliably under 6 months now. So that means the flash to bang has just accelerated amazingly. So very excited about those two. We're also using it for data cleansing. We have a huge problem with some of the HR data we pulled in. And so we've got another cyber request out to help us process and analyze that data. And that is going to save tons of man hours and probably do it more effectively than the average human can do it. So with the human presence plus that together, we're really optimistic about being able to clean HR data. So another one is for portfolio management, a very tricky process, as I'm sure you've heard, where we have huge portfolios within the Army that we need to start consolidating and finding how we combine certain programs together. And so using AI to be able to do that vast research and say, hey, there's a lot of commonality between product A and product B, so we can probably just pick one or the other to stick with. So there's that in terms of the true AI sense. But then we're also looking at doing an HR help desk, which will also be AI driven. And the idea behind it is to give soldiers 24/7, 365 access to their data within the HR system and have AI be the primary agent. Still have humans behind it, but the initial first call and first contacts would go through AI, and it would be very comprehensive. It'll be able to answer anything from a policy question to actually taking care of like passwords and things of that nature. So a lot of workloads coming at us, and that doesn't even touch on the more agentic style and automated workloads that we've got today. For example, one of the things we're really leaning on heavily now is automating our system engineering process. So we have developers today using AI to generate actual applications, and then they pick it up from there and continue to modify them as needed. We are looking into right now having a virtual consultant actually tell us when we're following best practices or not, kind of on a live basis. So that's an amazing capability. And then by the end of the year, what I'm really hoping is that we'll also start seeing automated test case generation happening over kind of agentic AI slash LLM. So we'll see how that happens. But right now, we're very excited and bullish about where we're going.
Well, I appreciate your sharing all those examples, and they sound like very powerful use cases of AI really helping accelerate your work. Next, I'd like to explore a little bit, as we talk to agencies, there's obviously a growing volume of data and AI workloads. And, the question becomes, where do you run all that? So as you consider factors like cost and data control and, the ability to innovate, what would you say are the key advantages of using on-premises data centers and service stacks compared to the key advantages of using public or government authorized clouds?
So, I mean, that's a question that has, been on our minds now for years. And where the government actually has gone is a little bit on the surprising side. Up until, I would say, 2 years ago, we kind of focused on trying to bring all data into an on-premise facility so that we could be absolutely sure we protected the data. However, a shift has begun. And our new emphasis nowadays is really ongoing with sovereign data cloud providers and entrusting them to handle our storage needs and do it securely. So we have gotten to a point now where we recognize that I can't compete against Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. They get economies of scale that we'll never get. And candidly, their security levels have gone to the point where most Fortune 500 companies are entrusting them. Wall Street is entrusting these cloud providers. And as such, we are now kind of doubling down on the Army cloud ethos. So where we're going is rather than trying to fight the economy of scale problem, we're kind of accepting that there are others out there that can do it better than we can ever do it. So that's where we're heading today. So I would say in terms of on-prem, we actually are counterintuitively kind of holding our on-prem hosting, if anything, reducing it slightly. As a matter of fact, we recently announced that we're going to be taking our all-test capability, which is a data center down in Radford, and we're transferring it to PEO C3N, who has more of a need because of their tactical execution that all-test is more aligned with. So for us, it's more a question of moving to the cloud.
And then you raise a good point about managing sensitive data and the security of that. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about some of the advantages you still see about maintaining on-premises data centers or on private clouds, if you will, and kind of what the key advantages of those still are in your portfolio?
Yeah, so I mean, especially for elements where we're talking about security apparatus, I mean, a lot of that is still being held, very tightly on-prem, and our Netcom group is doing some of that. And then really where we are focusing a great amount of effort is working with our partners like Amazon that establishes that connectivity to the absolute required on-prem resources. But more importantly, establishing new ways of hosting in the cloud that gets rid of latency, that gets rid of unnecessary data traversal. And so we're working right now with our partners at OCIO and also at DISA to start creating new ways of doing hosting in the cloud that ties back to on-prem as needed, but still allows us to stay in the cloud and enjoy that cost competitive capability that we get.
And then as you think out over the next 2, 3 to 5 years, and with IT workloads likely to increase dramatically with AI, can you give us kind of a sense of how you see your investment and infrastructure investment strategy kind of evolving? Where do you see that going for your group?
Well, we're already kind of working on numerous different aspects of where that investment's going to go. So this year alone, we've committed a substantial amount of energy into basically, I would say, aligning around establishing sovereign clouds and getting reusability in the cloud infrastructures wherever we possibly can. So, for example, we have OCIO has what they call C-Army, which is basically a stamp, a reusable stamp of a network infrastructure in the cloud. that already has the right connectivity back to whatever on-prem resources we need, already handles a lot of the security and logging capabilities. And so as soon as we start a new system, we're about 90% down the road of having everything pre-configured for us. And then we have more or less unlimited scalability. So our investment has actually been to work very closely with Army CIO, Mr. Leo Garcia and his team, and kind of co-designing what we are calling right now the gray zone, which is basically a carefully crafted and secure environment that allows our trusted partners and us to communicate at very efficient speeds. And I would say that we did that with the EBSC program. We're doing it with others now. And we're very excited about where that's going. And I think the best part about it is it kind of is like a no compromise kind of solution, because we get the performance we want that we could have gotten on-prem, but we also can tie to on-prem very cleanly now in a manner we've never been able to do. So we're very bullish on the investments we made this year, and we're probably going to continue into that next year and bring more and more workloads into that capability over time.
Thank you for laying that out. And then lastly, bringing it back to the discussion of AI, what are the most significant issues or gaps that still need to be addressed at your organization to take fuller advantage of both AI and your data's potential?
A lot of it still has to do with policy. We have a bunch of policy that still gets in the way of adopting really any technology. When you talk about the non-deterministic nature of AI, it only compounds the problem, because a lot of our test methodologies is say if I provide A plus B, then I expect C to be exactly this. With AI, you might get some creative answers, and so testing becomes a very unique challenge. So we've seen the Army over the past year with Linchpin and other efforts was a way to consistently enable AI in a safe manner to avoid things like hallucination and bias. So what we're realizing now, though, is that there are faster ways to get there. And so we're going to be investing heavily on the ability to start bringing in AI capabilities from industry that are actually associated with the programs and the products themselves. So case in point, I think what you have Einstein on the Salesforce platform, you have Joule on SAP. And so what we're looking to do is find ways of bringing them into the government safely, keeping them in a more or less isolated locations that we can protect our data and make sure that we're not sharing anything with bad actors. So that's one. The other thing, too, is the automation side of the house. We want to avoid automating bad processes in other areas as well. So the Army has a very labyrinth-like set of processes in .mil.pf. .mil.pfp now. I know we added a P at the end. So what we're trying to do now is get to a point where instead of doing BPR as we did it in the past, it's really use digital transformation as the key enabler to looking at actual business processes and first question whether they're necessary. Second, question whether or not technology is the best way to implement it and just actually fully automate it. So in some cases, I don't think you need humans in every loop. So you can take them out of the loop, and then you have human on the loop that I think will be kind of prevalent going forward. So we really need to take that digital transformation look, question what it is we're automating before we automate it, and try to get to a point where we can do more in faster cycles rather than automating everything. And I can give you a specific case point. One of them is AIE. I think you've heard about that one. That's a program we're extremely proud of, and in the past year, it's really caught fire and done some great things. So one of the things that they did is that they were given a task by CSA about looking at the current process and really reinventing the process. And in that first look, they were able to determine that whereas it used to take up to 200 documents to bring a soldier into the Army, they're now looking somewhere in the vicinity of 20. So they believe now that we could just get rid of a good majority of it. And also, a lot of those documents were duplicative. So you started out filling out the same header on every single page. And so now what's happening is instead of being form-centric, it is now data-centric. So as soon as you enter data, the system remembers it, auto-fills what it needs to autofill when there is a form, but by and large, not even bothering to turn it into a form. The data is really what the key driver is. So I would say it's the shift of getting away from the old legacy processes, which many were created back in the 70s and 80s before IT. rethinking them entirely and finding ways of automating and making us more efficient across the board.
I love the way you describe that, moving from form-centric to data-centric. It makes so much sense, but not as easy to do as a lot of people would think. And weeding through all those processes must feel like a real set of progress, getting from 200 documents to 20. Both examples of really the power of AI and the importance of the kind of initiatives you're taking. Well, Bill Hepworth, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of the work and the initiatives that you're doing at PEO Enterprise, and just kind of giving us your perspective on kind of how things are moving forward, particularly with AI workloads coming in so mainstream for every organization. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. Good talking with you, Wyatt.
You too.